Okay, we're going to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. Present are council members Frazier, Cost, Bub, Blake, and Marmee. First item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $13,577.
Good evening. This is in reference to one of our grants from the Department of Corrections. They moved or changed their grant cycles to 2 years instead of one, so sometimes it's challenging to know when we're going to need to purchase certain things. So the officer who is in charge of drug testing informed me a couple weeks ago that we need some products. So a breakdown of that figure would be $8,520 to Redwood Labs. That would be for drug tests. $3,375 to Intrinsic, which is another drug testing company. That would be for drug tests, and then $1,682 for testing supplies from Redwood, which would equal the $13,577.
Take a motion.
Second.
Motion by Bub, second by Frazier. Any questions or discussion?
I have a question. So the process is the 1682 is in-house testing supplies. Is that what the 1600 is for?
Actually, all this is for usage of the probation department, so it's actual drug tests and then supplies like cups and gloves and things like that.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $39,510.18.
I'm filling in for the law director tonight, even though I'm not licensed. The law director's office has contracted with the city of Pataskala for prosecution services. Pataskala's already paid the city $39,500. It's in the bank. This appropriation will allow for compensation to the staff of the law director's office who will be performing services for Pataskala, so the city's not paying them for that work.
Motion.
Motion by Frazier, second by Cost. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation amount of $206,000 for TIF refunds.
This represents payment to the Licking Valley School District from our TIF proceeds. The original TIF agreement in 1996 allowed that 25% of the proceeds we received shall be paid to Licking Valley Schools because they gave up their right to tax the TIF district. We're getting a lump sum payment from the county because the Longaberger Corporation had been delinquent for about 6 years. So when the real estate sold, we received back payments. So this is what our estimate is for Licking Valley Schools.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Bub, second by Frazier. Questions or discussion? Mr. Frazier.
The TIF remains in effect, correct, for the Longaberger basket? So even though we're getting this payment, this TIF, future development, we'll still get that TIF money in for those infrastructure improvements?
I'm not certain.
Okay.
That's a legal question.
So the law director needs to be here?
He needs to fill in for me the next time.
Not a problem.
Any other questions? Yeah. Doug, it was my assumption that the TIF remains in effect.
If I recall correctly, it was a 30-year TIF.
Right.
Don't quote me on that, but I think it was a 30-year TIF. It initially went into place in 1996, so I'm not exactly sure of that, but I can get back.
Yeah.
So it's winding down.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the question came from, if we sell it, does that negate any of the TIF agreements? But it sounds like
If we did what?
the sale doesn't negate any of the TIF agreements, right?
No.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to apply for financial support from the state of Ohio 2018 Nature Works grant.
The city's going to throw its hat in the ring again for NatureWorks from ODNR. Jeff and I are talking about where we want to do this. We'll be getting with Dave soon to go over some ideas. This is a 75-25% split for the grant.
Second.
Motion by Cost, second by Frazier. Questions and/or discussion? Mr. Frazier.
The previous grants that we got for this, what were they? Do you know?
Well, our most recent one is Wells Park, which, if you want to mark your calendar, we are told today that on April 16th that our playground installer, who happens to be a resident of Newark, will be installing the new playground equipment and site amenities at Wells. So.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $1,150,000.
These next four items are going to be related to each other. This is for the work that we're doing in the downtown, but we're doing the work on Church Street. So the first item out of the 661 fund is for the new sewer lines. I don't know how many people were aware, but we're doing the work on the corner, or we're going to be doing work on North 2nd Street in the intersection of Church and North 2nd. And also on Church Street from 3rd to 4th, which is started now, and then we're going to be doing from 2nd to 3rd. This finalizes what we're doing on North 2nd Street, and what's the biggest portion of this money will be repairing that intersection. When we did the work up to that intersection, that sewer collapsed on us, and so we need to repair it. We got it temporarily repaired at the moment, but we need to put new in because that's what we assumed was going to happen downtown if we didn't fix stuff. So that's what happened over there. But this also separates those areas, and it makes the whole, as we finalize it, gets that whole area completely separated until we move on to the other sections that we're going to be doing in the next 20 years. So, but this separates everything in the downtown then. So that's why we moved on to these sections. So,
Motion.
Second. Motion by Frazier, second by Bub. Questions and/or discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Frazier.
When is this scheduled for, and when's the completion date targeted?
this work should all be done sometime this late summer or early fall. We started on this work today. You had noticed we closed Church Street down, so even though this money's not been appropriated, this is additional work that we were going to do that work, some of that work anyway. This is kind of an add-on to that, and this other work down on 2nd Street. So this is what this is covering. So,
Any other discussions or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion passes 5-0. You say that 300,000 is in addition to that?
that's the stormwater portion of the
Okay,
of the
entertain a
work.
motion.
Motion.
Motion by Frazier, second by Cost. Questions on the stormwater portion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. 45,000 is for the line portion.
Water line portion of the work.
Entertain- Motion
Second.
by Frazier, second by Bub. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 5-0. And then the last one is $1,250,000.
And this is the sidewalks, some street paving, and some electrical work, and some of the streetscaping work that's going to happen.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Cost, second by Frazier. Questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Blake.
Mr. Loomis, can you remind me, where are the funds for the 661 fund? Where is that? Where's all
661 is wastewater, 669 is stormwater, and 621 is water, and then the 333 is the street maintenance, which will come from bond money.
So all the dollars in 661 are from the stormwater tax? Is that what they're?
From the stormwater utility
Utility.
fees.
Any further questions?
Yeah, these won't be borrowed funds, so
So these are
the
directly out of-
water, stormwater, and wastewater are all out of our unappropriated balances.
Okay.
So,
Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $2,387.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm standing in for Mr. Baum tonight. Steve and the mayor over in Newark High School with Doug Ute in that community conversation. This $2,387 was donated money, and the sole purpose of it was to support the NARI program, and this appropriation will make that happen.
Motion.
Motion by Frazier, second by Cost. Questions or discussion?
I have a question.
Mr. Frazier.
Do we have specifics on what supplies we're purchasing with this? Is it just Narcan? or-
I'd have to defer to Mr. Baum on that because I don't know.
Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $6,451.61.
This is an appropriation that needs to be carried over from year to year for the professional training of officers. I believe they're mandated by the state for so much training each year, and there was an error. We didn't carry this money forward in last year's budget. So what we're doing is correcting that.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Bub, second by Frazier. Questions and/or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $5,500.
Actually, it's an unappropriation
Yes, I'm sorry.
or
Unappropriation.
disappropriation or whatever, however you want to word it. So the next two, section number 7 and section number 8 go together. Basically, this is just to move money from the salaries and wages account to the professional services account to allow us to keep the current person that's doing our secretarial work on until the end of June.
Motion.
Second. Motion by Frazier, second by Bub. Questions and/or discussion?
I have a question.
Mr. Frazier.
What's the plan after June? We're gonna hire somebody new?
The plan is to hire somebody before the end of June and have them train with Kathy, our current person there. So.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Our motion passes 5-0. And the
you.
next one is the appropriation of $5,500.
Motion.
Motion by Frazier, second by Cost. Questions and/or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is an ordinance to provide for the issuance of not to exceed $1,125,000 of bond anticipated notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the cost of Church Street area improvements and repair, including electrical, sidewalk, street, and streetscape, and all necessary appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency.
This will fund the Church Street project that Roger was just talking about.
Second.
Motion by Bub, second by Frazier. Questions and/or discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I thought Mr. Loomis just told me that was going to come out of the 661 fund.
No.
It was just part of it. He had it broken down.
4 parts. The fourth part was out of the
This is the
333.
333 fund.
Oh, I see it now on the paper. Okay, I'm sorry.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, scroll down to it, is an ordinance to provide for the issuance of not to exceed $2 million of bond anticipated notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the cost of Buckeye Corridor Stormwater Plan sewer improvements and all necessary appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency.
The city borrowed $2 million a few years back for the Buckeye Corridor Storm Sewer Project. This is a renewal of that note. There's another one coming up just after this that will be connected with this, but this is a renewal for the $2 million.
Motion.
Motion by Frazier, second by Bob. Questions and/or discussion? Mr. Frazier.
The previous agreement, was it a short-term bonding that we did, and this is the long-term bonding?
No, this is just the renewal, the short term. And what we're going to do is, this is only going to be renewed for 9 months. So 9 months from now, we should be able to issue revenue bonds. That's something we haven't done in a while, which will help our borrowing quite a bit, because a lot of our debt now is general obligation. It's tax-based. With revenue bonds, it would be paid for out of proprietary or utility funds. So we assume in 9 months, we'll be ready to go with that. So this is only going to be renewed for 9 months, and that'll be the end of this one.
Any further questions? Yes, Mr. Blake.
This is probably more directed towards Mr. Loomis and Mr. Moorhead regarding the project itself. But I had once received a map of the Buckeye Stormwater Corridor. It was color-coded with the different projects. That was a few years ago. Is there an updated map that shows what progress has been made in the Buckeye Stormwater Corridor? Do you recall what map I'm referring to?
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely. So the work we started at the north end to correspond with the intersection improvement at 30th and West Church Street. So the work on Church Street to 30th Street, and then south on 30th Street to Longview, Woodlawn is done.
Is that map updated? Could that be emailed to the members of council?
The map is still valid. The map had
Phases.
many phases on it.
Right.
I can tell you what's been done and what the next step is, but it's still following that map basically.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is an ordinance to provide for the issuance of not to exceed $1 million of bond anticipated notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the cost of water system improvements and all necessary appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency.
This one is somewhat related to the one that you just approved. We started out with a $2 million bond anticipation note, and a few years later, we increased it by $1 million for the water portion of this. So this is a separate note. We actually have a note for $3 million, but it's broken down into the original for $2 million, then the additional $1 million. And again, this will be for 9 months.
Motion.
Second. Motion by Frazier, second by Bub. Questions and/or discussion?
I just have a question. What is that process for the revenue bonds? Do we just come back and request $3 million and then get those bonds and then pay off this anticipatory note? Is that how that works?
That's how it works.
Okay.
Further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is a request for an ordinance consolidating 2 bond anticipated notes issue of the City of Newark, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
What this does is combine the $2 million note and the $1 million note, and allows us then to renew a $3 million note. This just ties them together.
Motion.
Second. Motion by Frazier, second by Cost. Questions and/or discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Okay, combining which bonds again?
The last 2.
The last two, the Buckeye corridor for $2 million.
Okay.
And then the $1 million water bond that's related to it.
Okay.
So we have a $2 million note and a $1 million note. This just combines them to make a $3 million note. We sell $3 million.
So the actions so what's the advantages there then?
What we did was we started out with a $2 million note, and we needed to increase it. So we increased it by $1 million, giving us $3 million. According to our bond counsel, they have to be consolidated into one instrument for $3 million rather than $2 million and $1 million. It's just like kind of cleans it up. And also, the advantage of it is it makes it a little more cost effective because we're just selling the note one time. So we only have to have one legal opinion and one closing fee to pay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Steve.
Sure.
Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, this meeting of finance stands adjourned. Next up is safety.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Safety Committee to order. Present are myself, Mr. Frazier, Mr. Fennell, Mr. Blake, and Mr. Rath. This evening we're going to continue a discussion that we had a few months ago regarding the footbridge near St. Francis de Sales. Even though we're having a discussion, I would ask that each of you, if you'd like to speak, if you could come to the podium and just give your name and address for the record. Who would like to speak to the footbridge? If you could raise your hand, please. Ms. Floyd, could you start us off, please?
I'm speaking as a Carol Floyd, 198 Mount Vernon Road. I'm speaking as a former council member from that area of the city. That footbridge has been there since the freeway started through downtown. I've lived at my house that long. I remember when the freeway went through. There are an awful lot of people in Newark who do not have very high incomes. I think many of you are aware of that, but I'm not sure the entire community is. The study done by the United Way says 21% of the people in Newark live in poverty, and up to 55, another 34% basically are what we used to call the working poor. Those people who have jobs but don't make enough to be able to get along. There are an awful lot of people north of the freeway who walk to get anywhere. I live on Mount Vernon Road. People walk by my house every day. I see more walkers than most of you do probably in a day. If people walk in a lot of neighborhoods, they walk for exercise. The people who walk by my house are walking downtown to UDF or to the dollar store, either the one on East Main or the one on West Main, or they're walking down to Wendy's, or they're walking someplace to get things that they need, and later they come walking back up the other way. So to cut off a means of walking, to cut off a place where they can walk. I know people could come over to Mount Vernon Road and walk down, but that's quite a distance, especially using the side streets. I think the city has already done a number of things. I know the school, that St. Francis has already done some things. I know brush has been cut back, lights have been put up, a building has been torn down. I would add to that, it would seem to me, one of the practical things for it to do would be to ask the police department to periodically come down Granville Road and go up Pearl Street and around. And we have at least 4 police cars every shift that are touring the city, and they would have the ability to go there, particularly during school times, during times when there are events at St. Francis. Oftentimes just having somebody there stops things. As a retired teacher, I know that. If you're there, sometimes things don't happen. But I just think we need to recognize that an awful lot of people in this city, particularly those closest to downtown, walk to get where they need to go. And we need to leave those paths open for people to use. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I ask this board a question?
Yes, Mr. Rath, go ahead.
Oh, sure.
Carol, I appreciate your opinion and am interested and curious in your knowledge.
Thank you.
Obviously, you've been on city council for a long time and lived in that neighborhood since the neighborhood was invented, according to you. But the places that you mentioned, whether it be UDF on 4th Street,
right,
Wendy's on the east side of
the square,
the dollar store on East Main Street,
and the one on West Main.
And then, so there's one on West Main.
Yes, there is.
Those other 3 places. And I guess I'm not familiar enough to where that traffic is coming from. I know there's a lot of traffic, but I'm not familiar enough as to where that traffic is coming from.
I think lots of it comes from like Buckingham and, there's little side streets around there. And if they're going to buy, I know they can't get fresh fruits and vegetables and much in terms of the way of, meat or anything like that. But at the dollar store, they can get canned goods and boxed goods, and I've been there. I think they have milk and things like that, so they can get some things. And to tell them that they need to walk over to Mount Vernon Road to go clear down to West Main Street to go up to beyond 6th, because it's between 6th and 7th. So that, to me, that's a long way to ask people to go to buy necessities. And I just think that we need to keep transportation routes open to people.
Well, the reason I'm asking is if you have a large population in that area that's using that footbridge, and I don't know if it's a large population using it or if it's a small population using it a lot.
Could be.
But anybody who lived east of Pearl Street, across the highway, Mount Vernon, it seems to me like the Mount Vernon Bridge to at least most of those places is going to be a shorter route, as opposed to,
I don't think if you're going to the dollar store on West Main Street.
Not the dollar store on West Main Street, but we also listed off 3 other places.
But I'm not sure UDF either, especially depending on where you live up there. And I don't know where all those people come from. I wasn't there. I know that Mr. Moorhead, they had cameras for a 24-hour period and saw over 400 trips back and forth across the bridge. I don't know how many of those were repeats, how many of those were, I don't know that.
It could be 200 people, it could be 100 people.
It could be. On the other hand, I just think that, you can do other things to provide safety. Obviously, that's what the mayor and the safety director are talking to Newark High School about right now. You can look at other ways to, because lots has happened since this discussion first came up. The building's torn down, the brush is done away with, they put up lights, and that makes a big difference.
Steel reinforced fencing around the school.
Yeah, right. And I just know how much in my neighborhood, once the bridge opened, how much that lighting has changed the area. There have been times when I've had people say, aren't you afraid to live there? I never have been, but because there have been some shady characters from time to time. But you put bright lighting in, and it changes the neighborhood tremendously. So I can't answer your questions directly because I don't know who all uses it. But
It's all right. I was asking more of your opinion than facts, I guess.
Okay, thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, Leisha Farias, 116 Smithview, Heath, Ohio, and I'm a representative of the North Think Tank on Poverty. The footbridge is a vital bridge for those who are on foot, and sometimes, we hear ourselves say, well, it's not that much farther, but the people that don't have cars are people that are often disabled, have families, have small children, don't have the gear. So what for us, middle-class people who have means, we think it would be simple just to walk that extra block. I think we have to put our minds into the situations of the people that need that bridge, because as we know, for people to get access to grocery stores, there is no grocery store now in downtown Newark. People have to go farther and farther to actually go to a grocery store. We had a think tank member that was working at the UDF. He said it sometimes he would see families come in to get their groceries. He would have to stop and go into the bathroom and just cry because he couldn't believe that that's what people had to eat. And it just gave him pause. So this city and the taxpayers are paying for the whole city to be protected, to live in safe communities, to have access to their most basic human needs. And so if we're not going to provide public transportation for people, for God's sake, let's not take away their footbridge, because that's vital for them. And again, the footbridge is not the problem. The problem is the crime. The problem is the property maintenance. It's those larger issues that the city needs to address so that all neighborhoods can experience safety. Let's not single them out, and let's not put poorer neighborhoods on some different scale of deserving any kind of safety concerns at all. So I really advise us not to get hung up on this footbridge. That's not the problem. The problem is addressing the real safety issues and the crime issues in our community. Thank you.
Would someone else like to speak to this? Raise your hand.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Hickman, 5823 Jacksontown Road. I do not live in the area that you're speaking of. However, my personal opinion of the whole matter is, if you're going to close it down, why aren't we closing down these houses? It's selling every day. Even though you don't see those people, you don't stop those people, you're going to tear down their houses as well as tear down their footbridges. I mean, it's everywhere. Tearing down that footbridge is not going to solve your problem. It's just going to create a bigger problem for those that cannot access the other side of town, depending on which way you're going. If you're trying to come to town to get things, or if you're trying to get back home after you've bought them because you went down Mount Vernon Road. It is a long walk for somebody that can't walk. And if that's the best way you can get there, you're going to walk, you're going to take a break, you're going to walk, you're going to take a break. I know that from experience because I can't walk far. So I think the shorter route for those that can get across town needs to stay there.
Mr. Rath.
I'm sorry, if you could just clarify, I'm not sure what the correlation between the footbridge and you referenced houses. You lost me on that.
You have the biggest issue at the footbridge is about the drug issues. You have houses out here that have drugs in them every day. You don't tear down their house when you find them. So if you tear down the bridge, are we going to tear down their houses?
You looking for me to an answer?
You're the one that has a question. I'm sorry.
That means you're the one that gives the answer.
And I did, to the best of my ability.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I appreciate that. I understand that. I just
Okay.
kind of got lost.
That was the only way I could figure to explain it. I'm finished.
No, I have a question for you after she sits down, though, Mr. Chairman, so.
Okay.
We have a couple more.
Well, yeah, I understand, but I just wanted to get some clarification from the chairman after, once you're.
Am I free?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
You were free when you started.
Mr. Chair, I was just curious, where did this, someone did propose of this, or how did this end up on the agenda, or we talked about this a few months ago, how did we end up where we are now?
I did.
So is someone going to speak in favor of closing it, or what's?
I wouldn't say in favor. I just want further discussion. I'd be happy to.
I guess I'm just curious as to why what's the intent, where are we planning to go,
Doug Marmee, 317 South Heather Drive. The reason why I wanted it back on the agenda is because recently in the media, everybody says that you know the first thing you need to do is make sure to protect your children. And with everything that's going on in this community, I want to make sure that our community doesn't become that situation. As Leisha says, and I agree with her, this is a safety issue. It isn't about the bridge itself. It's about the safety of those children in that school and the incidences that have occurred there. Director Baum indicated that is an escape route when they are in pursuit of any kind of a criminal. It's an easy access for them to get away, and they would utilize that route in order to make sure that, because they know the police officers cannot pursue them across that bridge. So therefore, the whole issue that I have is, where are we on this? We have a safety concern, we have to address it, and we have to resolve it for the children who are exposed to that safety concern. I'm not saying that closing down the bridge is the answer, but we have to come up with an answer, because we cannot allow another incident with a gentleman with a firearm right there in that vicinity around those children. If it's something that we can deter, like Carol has indicated, that we have a higher presence of police officers in addition to the things that we've already done, I just want to make sure that we don't end up on the headlines of the news that we failed to act when it has been brought here as a safety concern and that we have failed to address it. So that's where I'm coming. I don't want to stop the discussion. I don't think that the safety issue is over. I agree with Leisha. There's other factors involved in it that has caused this. We do have to address all that. Infrastructure is a priority, but it comes second to the safety of our citizens. The safety of our citizens is our first primary responsibility of local government. Every one of those children in that school is a citizen. Okay? So that's our number one priority. Infrastructure is our second priority. Making sure that we have a good infrastructure. So I agree with everything that's being said here, but we need to make sure that the number one priority is taken care of, which is the safety. And I don't think it's been completely addressed, because Director Baum has even indicated, as an ex-police officer, that yes, that is an area where they can actually escape, and if they're trying to elude the police officers, that's an escape route for them to actually go across that area. We've had a couple of incidences at the school grounds. Now, the school is doing their part. They're really trying to do their part. I just want to make sure that we as a city don't drop the ball and just think that that's enough. Is there ever a top level of security for our citizens that we cannot go above? And in addition, for children. And that's why I don't want it to stop at just, okay, we did a few things, then we don't need to discuss it anymore. So that's why I asked for it to still be on the agenda, to continue the discussion, to make sure that we've done everything we possibly can for the safety of those children.
Sir, of course. Just for the clarification of everybody in the room, can you list some of the incidents that occurred?
Yeah, there was a gentleman with a shotgun while the parents were picking up their students, and he had the shotgun right there in that area. The police officers were trying to get to him. I mean, they were lined up waiting to pick up their children. The children were being dismissed. That was one of them. Another one, a gentleman with a knife, was pounding on the windows at the school trying to get in. So those are just the two most recent ones that I've had. There's other things as far as the drug activity. I think the drug activity has reduced significantly with the fixes that have taken place. I just want to make sure that that isn't a magnet for some kind of pursuit or something where someone that's trying to escape and all of a sudden there are children there and that's their avenue of trying to elude the police or whatever the situation. I just want to make sure we've done enough. But I really think as far as talking to father about some of the issues down there. I think the drug activity and the things that have been going on down there in the past, I think it has reduced significantly. They are not seeing all the different drug paraphernalia and everything else that was left there previously. So I think that that what we have done has made good strides. I agree.
Yeah, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Have they put up security cameras by now, or are they planning on cameras around? I mean,
Who's
they
that?
enhanced the lighting around, and they took
Yeah.
the building down.
You mean the school?
Yeah. Do they have cameras?
What does a camera do?
I think it deters.
A camera is not used as a deterrent. A camera is used as an apprehensive tool. Deterrents are things that keep somebody from coming out of there. A camera does not deter any activity. It just insists in the apprehension. As far as your home security, having a camera is not necessarily going to deter. An alarm system with an alarm is actually a deterrent.
That would be good.
An alarm is, and they do have alarm systems there, yes.
Second question.
Mhm.
I would like to see them before they close the bridge. I would like to see them maybe hire, and I know it's down to money, but hire an officer that's maybe retired, police officer in town that has the ability to carry a gun and knows how to use it. And maybe he walks the beat on Mondays and Wednesdays, and maybe the other churches around there might be having the same issues, I don't know. If they could come together and maybe financially hire someone for that beat.
If you were having a safety concern at your house, and our response to you as a city was you need to hire somebody to provide safety for your own home, would that be something you would be acceptable to
No, I'm
do?
a taxpayer and I have police to call.
So
they can
So
call.
does the school.
And I think that what we need is a report of how many people are crossing that bridge and going into the city as opposed to
Right.
the incidents.
My argument is not about necessarily closing it down. We just have to make sure that there's safety, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I am not saying that closing the bridge down is the only solution and that's what needs to be done. That is not the reason why I am here and talking about this. My concern is that have we done enough to provide the safety of those children in that area and the parishioners of that area who are there during adoration in the middle of the night and other things that are going on? Have we provided enough safety for them? And if something goes wrong, will we be able to say, yes, we did everything we could?
Let's not forget the residents as well.
And the
as
residents as
employees.
well, yeah. And the other facilities that are there that are providing shelter for other individuals. It's right there in the area. Yeah.
Can I reply to that? I know a couple other people want to talk. Is that okay?
If you go ahead, yes.
Like a traffic cop.
So I get concerned when, because it's a private school where people are paying money, it's a different class of children and citizens, that for some reason that they deserve some extra layer of protection. There are children that are living in those neighborhoods. Why isn't their safety as much concern as the children and the people that are paying money to send their kids to that school? We're losing sight of what's important here. And again, I hope soon we can get the discussion of closing this footbridge off the table, because that's not what the problem is. It's the safety of the neighborhoods. And not just St. Francis. That's one little entity which happens to be at one end of that footbridge. But St. Francis is a very small portion of this discussion, and we cannot get hung up on whether Father Sizemore is happy or, the parents who pay, tuition money are happy that maybe their children aren't safe. What about all the children that live in that neighborhood? Their safety is equal importance. Thank you.
And there's a few over here, and I saw a hand here as well.
Hello, I'm Irene Kennedy, 867 Shelburne Place. It's nice to be back here for a change. Some of the issues about St. Francis, I have the minutes. We have a ministries meeting, and it was discussed at the ministries meeting. And in those minutes, Father Sizemore said that there's a camera above the door closest to the footbridge mounted on Slattery Hall, and we will install a sign at eye level saying this site is being monitored and recorded. We will add other cameras around the campus and on Pearl Street. So cameras will be a deterrent. When you know you're being watched, you do things a little differently. And he said there has been less activity, as Doug said, on the street and less crime. So there is no more talk at St. Francis about asking to have that bridge closed. And I think that Alicia hit it on the head when she said all of the citizens of Newark need to have safety forces protect them. Deb and I, we're from St. Vincent de Paul. We went over across the bridge yesterday afternoon and knocked on a few doors and talked to some of the people that were coming across the bridge. And it was very interesting. The closer you get to the bridge, the more the crime is. And it's that little section of Chestnut and Buckingham there. And there are people there who really deal with it. And so it gave me a sense of what was going on the other side prior to these things. But when the better lighting was put in and the place was cleaned up over there, things calmed down. So my sense is maybe we need a little neighborhood revitalization over on the other side of the bridge. People over there said if you close the bridge, the crime is going to stay here. It's not going to solve it for us. They'll just come. They mentioned from Hudson Avenue over. There are problem neighborhoods, and I kind of know that because I lived on Hudson Avenue. But with some of the people we talked to, I told them to call property maintenance because we have a lot of bad landlords over there. You can tell by just walking down the street. But there are also a lot of people who own their homes, and they're all in favor of getting something better done in those neighborhoods. So I'm asking council to look into those kind of solutions, maybe work with the Newark Development Partners when this revitalization starts after the downtown renewal, and work on property maintenance issues, also tenant-landlord issues, using our, as I understand it, our fair housing person is now at Southeast Ohio Legal Services, I think, and they are very good at showing tenants how to put their rent in escrow and doing things to force the landlords to fix properties. And then our safety forces can be strategic in the way they patrol those neighborhoods. So I do think there are some solutions to the concerns that everyone has, but most of the people over there said closing the bridge isn't going to do it for us. Thank you. I will say this, the walkers that we ran into as we were hanging out there, they have told me that walking down to the Mount Vernon Street Bridge is what I call it, 4th Street Bridge, that is heavy traffic, red lights, a whole lot different than just tripping across that little quiet bridge. Now, these were not drug addicts. These were people that are really using the bridge. So, I heard what they said, and I hope you'll hear it too. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, can you raise your hand? Yes, ma'am.
Tina Osborne, I live at 449 South 30th Street, Apartment I. And I'm one of the poor on the base income. I have walked that walkway, and it comes in very, very for people like saying with disabilities. I would rather walk on that catwalk instead of walking down Elmwood and Hudson. I know they said with the crime and that. And then with the crimes, when you say you got one that's going to run from the walkway and it's running, well, if an officer's, they got radios, the officer's on this side, hey officer, I need to back up on the other side of the catwalk. I mean, simple. Just radio, hey, he's going. We need one on the other side. And that's all I pretty much got to say.
Thank you very much. Phyllis, yes. Thank you.
My name is Helena Stevenson, and I live at 114 South 2nd Street, but I used to live on Park Avenue back when my son was much younger. He's 10 now. He was 3 then. And I have autism, and me and others who was on Social Security at that time used that bridge. We would have to use that bridge to go to PNC to get our Social Security. I also used that bridge to go to Opportunity Links. It's when I got accepted into the Work First program through Social Security. I walked that 8 miles across that bridge, back and forth, and now I'm a national and international award-winning disability rights advocate and published author. So that bridge is very important. Now my clients need to use that bridge. I just have a client, he has schizophrenia, he lives on that side of town. He uses that bridge to go to his part-time job. He's so excited to have that he has never had in 34 years. He feels like he's a member of the community. He needs that bridge. A lot of people with disabilities use that bridge. So I hope that it stays.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name's Admiral Wayne Butcher, 263 Union Street. There's one concern I have tonight. Where I live at, my street does not have no fire hydrants at all. If a fire department gets run down my street, I had 2, but fire department in my place 2 times or 3 before a gas leak. And every time I see those boys pull up in engines, they don't have no way to let the hose out or put the fire out. Now, my main concern, what in the world are they going to do if a passenger jet loses the engine, decides to crash in one of their apartments? What are they supposed to do? What are they supposed to do when a good big size jumbo jet crashes? Just picture for a minute. A good big size jumbo jet loses engine and takes a nose out of one of the apartments and crashes into it. What in the world the firefighters are going to do for fire hydrants? That's right. I'm in the Jerry's district. I'm in your district. What in the world the firefighters are going to do as a good big size jumbo jet crashes in one of the apartment buildings with that pass?
The fact that it's a parochial school has nothing to do with the issue or the concern. Whether it's a parochial school that has individuals in it that are on assistance, and they're on assistance from the church in order to have their children go there. That has nothing to do with it. If it were a public school in the same position, the fact of the matter is our safety director, who is an ex-police officer for this city, indicated that there is a safety concern there. And that's all that it comes down to. It just so happens that it's a parochial school that's sitting there. If it were Newark High School or one of the elementary schools in the Newark school systems, the same issue would be on this table to make sure that we're providing safety for those children. And that's what we're talking about here. And not only them, but like I said, anyone else in that area, including the individuals that are using the footbridge. What if an individual who is using the footbridge to go get their groceries ends up being involved in a situation where there are police officers in pursuit and it draws them there? All I'm saying is that we need to have some kind of a plan, some kind of a contingency or something in place that'll make sure that that safety concern is addressed. A lot of the other safety concerns that we were aware of have been drastically reduced and already addressed. And I applaud the city, Director Rhodes and AEP and everybody else that was involved in that. The Safe Schools, the Safe Route for Kids that provided some assistance for the fencing. All of that came together, and it's been great. We've made great progress in this whole issue. I just want to make sure that we don't just say that enough is enough if there's still a concern out there. And that's what I'm getting to. Again, the thing is not, I'm not saying that the only solution is to close the bridge down. That is not what I'm talking about. Is have we done enough to make sure that we address the safety concern that our safety director brought to our attention? Did we do that? And that's what I want to make sure that we don't get off the table and that we continue forward with it.
Mr. Rath.
Yes.
That's a great question. Have we done enough to address the safety concerns of the students, faculty, parishioners, and residents of that area? How do you answer that? Tell me how to answer that. I don't know. I know we've addressed the issue. There's been...
My question would be to Director Baum.
We've addressed the issue. There's been things that have been put in place both by the school as well as by the city, or both by the parish as well as by the city, that have improved the situation greatly. I don't know how to answer that question and say, is that enough? The only way I know to answer that question is that enough, is to let it go as is and see if something happens. I don't know how to put any other value on that other than that. So I understand your question, and it's not one that's taken lightly. I understand that, and it's my major concern as well. I just don't know how to answer that question. The fact that everybody comes up here and says this footbridge is used by this person and that person and this group and that group, and yes, it's needed, and yes, it's being used by great people and all, nobody's debating that issue at all. Nobody's saying that it's not being used. Nobody's saying that it's not being used by great citizens of Newark. Nobody's saying that it's not needed in that area. Nobody's debating that issue. The issue is, have we addressed the safety concerns in that area well enough? Somebody please tell me how to answer that question.
So
we could do more, but more is putting a cop there all the time. I don't think we have the resources to that. I don't think it's fair to the rest of the city of Newark to do that. More is telling the school and the parish that they have to hire a cop to be there all the time. I wouldn't do that to that parish any more than I would do that to Wendy's on the east side of the square. It's exactly the same thing. I wouldn't ask Wendy's to go out and hire a cop, or the print shop across the street, or some business down on 21st Street to go hire a cop because they were concerned about safety concerns. I wouldn't ask a business to do that. That's just not right. We'd close the footbridge. That would certainly eliminate the escape route. It would certainly eliminate, I don't think it'll eliminate, but I think it will minimize the safety concerns at the school and the parish. But to what cost? There's a lot of citizens that use that. And I know at last count, it was like 400. Now that was before the Mount Vernon Bridge was opened, or had been opened long enough for it to establish. I'd love to see another count in a month or two after everybody knows the Mount Vernon Bridge is open and everybody knows, or rather weather has changed and people have a chance to change their habits. I don't know if that'll decrease the traffic on the footbridge or not. I don't know, but I honestly don't know how to answer that question, and I don't know what else we could do to ensure more safety in that area. So if somebody has suggestions or wants to discuss that topic, I'd be all for it.
Well, rock, paper, scissors for it.
Go ahead, Mr. Frazier.
So Doug, just to clarify where we are. So we put new lights in, we put a fence up, we're getting cameras, it sounds like, at St. Francis. Is the outstanding public safety concern the fleeing from police? Is that the big outstanding one that we have to address with this bridge?
I mean, I wish Director Baum were here to say that he felt better about the situation. If he says that everything appears to be okay and there's no greater concern than any other concern in the city of Newark, then it's on the record. But the last thing that on the record from our Director of Safety was that there was a safety concern with that issue.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, since the last time we had this discussion as committee, I know that the school administration has reached out to individual members of council. I don't know who all they've talked to, but I know at least I went in and talked to them on an individual basis. And we talked about the school resource officer. I mean, it's not uncommon for a school to hire, Newark High School has a school resource officer. So there's other schools that have school resource officers. There's the lights, the cameras, those all can be deterrents. So I agree with what you were saying, leading to there, Mrs. Hall. Those all can be deterrents. But I think what really comes down to here is communication. I mean, if we had another business, and businesses do hire their own security forces if they have higher security concerns than what our normal police officers are able to provide. There are businesses that do that. But I think it really comes down to communication and outreach. I mean, we are talking about a church, which is a service organization. So why not we tell other neighborhoods to form a block watch, to form some type of community outreach with the neighborhoods and the different agencies in that area. You have a facility there that they could have meetings and they have discussions. The eyes and ears of the neighborhood could be a part of that church. I mean, several parishioners are here from that congregation. And so, I mean, you're asking for ideas about trying to get more eyes and ears in the area. We tell other groups of citizens from other neighborhoods. I don't see why that couldn't be a similar revenue, a similar remedy, I'm sorry. And so that's something that I would throw out onto the table. But I just really, I know that the school administrators have met with me. I know they met with a few other members of council. So I think continued discussion is good. But I also, I think that's always, I don't necessarily think that this forum is necessary though. I mean, it's good to have this discussion, but we'd be having this discussion about several neighborhoods throughout our city if we were to bring in every single neighborhood that has safety concerns. And so I think, sort of outside the public forum that this is, I think those discussions need to be had, not necessarily here. But that's my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Someone else, could you please raise your hand? I see one there. Mr. Cost. I can't speak.
Bill Cost, 1639 Krebs Court. The issues we're discussing here about St. Francis Church and the neighborhood are no different than the safety concerns we have over this entire city. I realize there are problems between Fifth Street and Pearl Street, but those same problems exist in around every other church, around every other school, and it's just like Jeremy said, there are safety concerns that need to be addressed all over the town. We did individually meet with the administrators and some folks at St. Francis, and there were a number of suggestions made about the lighting, about the fencing, about camera, but for my opinion, the biggest improvement they made was tearing down a building where a lot of these activities were going on, around it, next to it, behind it. They got rid of some bushes that made it so you can see, you go back there now on Pearl Street, you can see all around. It's wide open. There isn't any place to hide. There isn't any place to be that you wouldn't be in view. So I think those suggestions have all been very positive, and I think taking the house down has been very positive as well. I would agree that the fence is not the problem. The underlying factors of some of the community areas and the crime and the drugs and the activities, it's not the fence. But I think we've made a lot of strides towards it. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Fennell.
I've also been contacted by a lot of constituents about this as well. And I don't believe from what I've heard from them that the bridge is the issue. People use that bridge. I think this study proved that. I think the point is that we have to make this bridge safer. We have to make our community safer. And so I think this brings up that question as to how do we do that. And a lot of great work has been done with St. Francis in working together to come together and make these changes to the neighborhood by taking down buildings, by adding lighting and adding security. So I think really this discussion should really be centered a little bit more around how can we improve overall safety and crime in our community, not so much cutting down infrastructure. Because really taking down infrastructure from one area is not going to eliminate the crime, it's just going to move it. And I don't think that we can really, I can't rest easy knowing that that is a solution, because I don't think it is a solution. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fennell. Is there anyone that has not had a chance to speak yet that would like to? Yes.
Speak on other people. The phone motion.
I'm Elizabeth Cooper, 64 and a half Poplar Avenue. One of my biggest concerns, I'm hearing a lot about St. Francis. I don't think it's that footbridge that's the problem, but yes, that footbridge is an escape route for a lot of things. But what's going to happen if, say, a gunman or something went into St. Francis and took off on the other side of that bridge where there's houses, there's children that play down there. I've walked that street a million times. What are you going to do if something over there happens? I understand it's just this one part, but there's also a lot of families, a lot of teens. Me being a teen myself, I'm scared to walk these streets, especially with all the drugs and crime going on. When my biggest opinion here, it's not that footbridge, it's we need to start doing more to keep the community safe with ears and eyes for the community and all parts of the community, not just this bridge, because it's just going to cause a whole bunch more. And if you close down that bridge, crime from one side is going to come to the other, and it's going to end up causing a big war going on. So we need to do more to protect the community and not just focus on one part of the community.
Mr. Rath.
Before you leave, thank you for coming up and giving us your opinion. I appreciate that. You say you're a teen. Are you still in school?
I am actually homeschooled, but I still walk the streets, walk down Newark Digital, St. Francis.
Well, of course.
All that.
Of course, you leave your house from time, even if you aren't homeschooled.
Yeah.
I understand. So you live in a house with family members?
Yes.
Mother, father?
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't agree with you more. I would encourage you to get involved, and this might be a good homeschool project for you as well. And I'll challenge you to start a block watch program. How's that?
Sounds good to me.
At least make a phone call, find out what's involved in it, and if it's something that you don't want to do, maybe talk to some other people. If you don't want to organize or be the leader of it, talk to some people in your neighborhood, see if there's an interest. See if you can get some people involved in that. The best way to clean up your neighborhood is to start with your neighbors. Get everybody involved, get everybody caring about where they live and caring about their neighbors. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
So I look forward to hearing back from you, telling us how successful it's been.
Thank you.
I have time for one last comment as we have council at 7. So Mr. Michael Fresh, I think you raise your hand if you would, please.
I wasn't planning on speaking, but David Michael Fresh, 153 North 39th Street. But several councilmen have made a comment about safety and what can we do and have we done enough. As a representative of the firefighters, I can't speak on behalf of police, but I'm very aware that both police and fire are at levels way below where they need to be. So when this council asks, have we done enough? When we've cut police and fire and they're back to levels where they were 30 years ago, I would say no. When we make priorities of building brand new police stations, brand new fire stations, but we don't have enough police and firefighters, I say no, we have not done enough to properly protect the citizens of Newark. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for their time this evening. We do have council coming up at 7 o'clock, so I want to make time for that transition. But I thank you for your time, and with that, the Safety Committee meeting is adjourned. We'll start council in 5 minutes. Thank you very much.